Well, we are the Mingarro brothers, and we run the Brosmind studio since 10 years ago, and we are illustrators and also artists based in Barcelona.
Well, I'm Alejandro, and he's Juan.
Yeah.
My brother did it. So nice.
I remember it was a small illustration for a small magazine here in Barcelona. We just finished the career, and at that time we just created the studio. We weren't sure if we were going to be illustrators. At that time, we did everything. We did since, I don't know, product design, website design, illustrations, which was a kind of hobby at that time for us.
I think the first real paycheck, it was really a little money, but it was for a small magazine here in Barcelona, really small illustration. So after doing this small illustration for a magazine, we got some other calls from other magazines, and probably our first important project as an illustrator was a project we did for Honda, and a series of 12 illustrations for a really small project here in Spain. And they said, okay, let's try to do something new with these people. Let's see what they come up with. And I think they also called us because we were not professional. We were probably cheaper than other people, and we were super excited. This was a real momento. It was like, man, we're finally doing something we like we kind of enjoy illustration. And this was like the big major starting point as an illustrator. And this project is also really important because it was the real point where we decided, like, hey man, we need to develop our own style as illustrators.
Probably in that project, you can see the seeds of the Brosmind style.
And we were really lucky because this project got really big and successful. It got 2 Lions cans in Cannes. So we were like, wow, man. We didn't even know what that award was. They just called us, man, this is amazing, blah, blah, blah. And then we realized, like, shit, man, this is a big thing, This is really happening. We can do things as we can live. Well, not that still that time, but it was an option being an illustrator. So we decided to close everything and say, okay, let's use all our experience and efforts into the illustration world.
Yeah, it was really surprising for us because we start receiving calls from many agencies around the world asking for more illustrations. And as we said, at that time, it was a kind of hobby. So we say, okay, we start believing in that possibility. So we start working mainly as illustrators, and finally we became illustrators at full time.
And then, so Honda was the first step of Brosmind, and the second major project was our first project for the States. Was like crossing the ocean. We got a call from such and such in New York, and we were like, that was the real big momentum, a call from New York, and they wanted our illustrations. And we got this call from such and such in New York about a project for Extradrine, the pills, and we have to illustrate around a concept, illustrations related to a headache, in terms that then you have to eat Extradrine to remove. And we were so excited. It was a project of 4 illustrations. There were 4 different artists, and we were in charge of one. And we were so excited and so hyper motivated. The American dream and all that. They pay us really well, and it was so intense that they ended up calling us and telling us, can you make the 4 of them, not only one? It was a great thing, For one side, like, man, yeah. And at the same time, it was like, whoa, a pain in the ass because it was a lot of work, but it was like this balance.
Yeah, thanks to that, we put the first step in the States, and later we find an agent there in the state.
When you get an agent, you learn so much about the business. You realize you didn't get that well paid in your previous work. They teach you how to really make proper budgets. You learn about copyrights, how to sell the rights or what to give. You learn a lot, and it really helps you a lot.
Yeah. But then we started to work a lot in advertising, and we got specialized in a kind of illustration, very busy illustrations with only one color, very crowd illustration. And we were happy at one hand, because we were living from that and things were going well, but as artists, we didn't feel fulfilled or realized. Yeah, so at that time we decided to change a little bit our style somehow. And to do that, we start to develop personal projects in our spare time, but seriously. Anytime we have the opportunity, we start doing personal stuff just to show the clients other kind of work they could ask for, other works that we feel like if that was the real Brosmind style.
Yeah, we realized that in order of people asking you what you really want to do, I mean, you kind of have to teach them, you know, so you kind of have to show them what to do. You don't have to wait for the perfect project. You really have to make it in your spare time and show it around. And then, okay, they're probably going to notice that somehow.
At that time also became one of our most beloved commercial projects, which is the Midman.
Yeah.
That character was for a magazine cover. And then you can see a change in the style, or because it was an object in the middle of the layout, not a crowded illustration again, but just a big character in the middle with a lot of meanings there and little things going around. We start to play with new colors and trying to find our new palette. So that was also a very important
step.
So at that time, we start creating one of our most loved personal projects, which is the What's Inside series, which are those ones with those characters which open themselves in many ways, and it's one of our most famous projects.
I don't know why or how we were really like loyal to this project, and we wanted to finish because we really wanted to show people what we were able to do or what actually we feel more comfortable with, you know. During this process, we didn't really have a color palette because we came out from black and white. So it was also really hard to find a color palette that we felt really comfortable with. And there is this project, like I think we did in 2011, that it's called Brosmind Friends. That is my brother and I surrounded by a lot of characters. And this is another new step where we kind of put a Brosmind color palette there, you know. We're not going to use like black outline, it's going to be always kind of a brown color, or we're only going to use these kind of 10, 12 colors, kind of pastel colors. And everything grew up at the same time that what's inside was growing up.
We really love to create characters, and we start doing those illustrations full of characters walking around, and we are doing commercial projects right now based in this kind of compositions.
One of the latest projects that we're more we feel like really released and happy with is a collection of characters we did for it's this chef in the States called Jose Andres. He's a Spanish one, but who is living in the States, and he's like a super chef. He lives in Washington. He has a lot of restaurants around there. And we got the chance to meet him a long time ago with a sculpture we did for one of his restaurants. And we jumped on him like 3 years ago in Washington in one of his restaurants. And we did some drawings for his restaurant, like notebooks and everything. Mm-hmm. And then he called us back like 2 years later, telling us like, hey guys, how are you doing? Are you still up to work with me and blah, blah, blah. And they invited us to work in his new idea of restaurant. He has this new concept that it's called beef stick, and he called us to create all his image. Like, okay, I want to have a lot of characters based in vegetables and stuff like this, and I want you to make a mural that then we can use for all our corporative image. You know, then they did the logotype, or all the restaurant is full with our illustrations or the menu and everything. You know.
The process, we do everything together in the studio. Since we think in the same way, we are brothers, we have the same background, so we think in a very similar way. Even the style of drawing, right now we have exactly the same style. We learned to do that during these years. We start with a pencil drawing, and we do it with 4 hands. I start drawing in one corner, I pass the paper to him. So at the end, it's a ping pong work. So
yeah, and the great thing about being brothers and in this kind of business of creativity that there is a lot of ego is that we can fight a lot, we can complain a lot, we can insult each other, go to the extreme, and then at the end you are brothers, you know, you go lunch together and then you forget everything. I mean,
no, but you never
being
know.
able to say whatever you want to another person and knowing that probably he's not gonna run out or whatever, I mean, that's a good thing. This year we're doing like the 10th year of Brosmind, so we're kind of walking through our career like really quick. And
yeah, just to show the most important things we learned through this process and just to show the key projects.
But also not only like in terms of creativity or what projects we did and with which brands and everything, also about how we learned to run the business, how we learned to do invoices, how we learned to talk to people, how we end up doing illustration. And also we talk how we arrange the studio, that we're only 2 on the studio, and talking about all those things that you cannot really see on the website. So we're going to talk about all these things happened during our 10th years. And we're also bringing our special controllers.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had the chance to see them. But yeah, we are really shy people. We don't really like to talk into an audience. So we started building those controllers that you actually put in this arm. And this is the latest version we did at the end of last year or last year. Yeah. And it includes a piano. You can actually play little tunes with it. And it has a joystick that you can use to play a video game. Yeah. Chan chan! Okay. Yeah.